Hello, Tracy.
Hello, Mina. So
It's
wonderful to be here with you.
absolutely. I've been waiting for this moment. I love your passion for people, children, and also your temperament as a clinician. And you're just out of the mind preparation and trainings and specializations, many of which I really admire, that integrate sensory systems and neurobiology and occupational therapy and the reason I'm so thrilled about having you here is because you have worked internationally and you've helped schools and you understand some of the issues that present themselves with students in school.
Hmm.
And my interest in your work is that in these days when not much support is available in terms of speech language providers, in terms of OT, PT, teachers need to have some basic idea of what's going on with their students that manifests itself as non-compliance, as not looking, as not paying attention.
Hmm.
And how can teachers read the students' bodies, even their eye movements when they're not looking, and and then be able to support the students so that the student feels more comfortable in their body, in their self-worth, and feels that they belong to the classroom as opposed to always getting into trouble.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of the things that guides me is that children are needing to be understood. And when we understand them well, we are far more effective at the things that we feel we're bringing to them.
Yes.
So it's so important. Yeah.
Where do we begin with this?
You know, I think where I always begin is my noticing, my curiosity and my noticing,
Yeah,
not feeling like I have to interpret or manage or control, but just really noticing. And what I notice is the whole of the child, how their body shows up, how their awareness shows up, how their attitude shows up,
yeah,
and then when I notice something, I make note of it. And it's so funny, Mina, because in one of the clinical reasoning models that I have developed called the Spirit,
yeah.
there's this funny little drawing. It looks kind of like a gingerbread man. Okay, it's
Uh-huh.
like a picture of a little drawing of a person.
Yeah,
And one of the things that I try to gear people's eyes to is that noticing in what are you tuning into? What are you noticing there? And so often it's in the body. So if you watch a child and you notice that the way that they're moving looks like it's lacking ease, it looks like it's not settling in.
yeah,
If you were to have that gingerbread man and you were to circle on the body, where are you noticing something?
yeah,
And starting to get kind of curious about that. And then what happens is that the more we understand about how we show up,
yeah.
the more we understand how to tune into that and impact that, then we really open the portals for the child's curiosity and learning.
Yes,
But so all of our minds, this
yes,
upstairs big mind of ours,
yes,
is sitting on this base, right? The
yes,
downstairs of our brain, and that's connected to our body, the
yes,
mind-body connection.
yes,
So I think we have to start with understanding and curiosity and tuning in.
yes.
And there's a lot of layers to all of that, but it's really giving yourself permission to be curious and
Right,
interested
right.
and naming that there's something that you're seeing.
Yes, yes. I completely agree with you, and I am trying to introduce that into the classrooms where I work one-on-one with some of the students within the classroom setting. And the teachers, they like it, but the teachers they have 18 children, if not more.
Hmm.
and they don't know how are they going to be able to notice this child and teach and have the child participate when it doesn't want to participate.
Hmm.
That becomes a real challenge that is different from working with a child in a clinical situation where it's one-on-one, it's not within a classroom, there are no rules, and the
Hmm.
child can show their interest, their pace, the
Yeah.
intensity of how much material is presented to them, that kind
Hmm.
of thing. So, what would you say to that?
It's a really common conundrum and question. But here, what I think I've learned over the years is that, and the research actually supports this as well, and that is that when we notice that there's a learner struggling in the classroom, they're a little bit like the canary in the coal mine, if you will. That it likely means that many kids in the classroom are working a lot harder than we know.
Yeah,
And when we pause to infuse into our day
yeah,
readiness routines, preparation of the
yeah,
body and the mind for
yeah,
learning,
yes,
kind of bookending our teaching with how are we ready for learning, and then how do we close that opportunity for learning, bringing natural start and stop cycles into the day
yeah,
that really match what the body needs, what the nervous system needs.
yeah,
That benefits that child who's really struggling the most, but it also benefits all the other kids in the classroom.
right.
So, as we do for learners who are struggling, we improve the learning for all students, and it's really something that we know is true in models of education.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct, correct. What is it that you actually do when you go and visit schools? How do you support them? Do you give them an ideal schedule for what they could do, how they could bookend certain activities, learning activities with movement activities?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times I'm going to make kind of a general recommendation that then would be individualized.
Yeah,
But the idea is that kids do well with routines. And we know that a universal best practice for any classroom
yeah,
is kind of what is the structure and routine that allows for things to perk along. Okay. So
yeah,
within that structure and routine,
yeah,
can we notice that we're doing some readiness activities to get the mind and the body ready, to get the mind and the body in synchrony with each other,
yeah,
so that the mind is really fine-tuned and ready to do its very best work. And
right.
sort of the way that would be true for any person, but
Yeah,
we need to pay attention to that. But as we bring that to the mindfulness of what we do in our classroom planning,
yeah,
then we don't just lesson plan for what is the next reading lesson or the next math lesson,
right.
but how do we get ready to do that kind of thinking? How, if I'm doing math work, I need to activate the spatial and
Yeah,
number systems in my mind.
yeah,
Where does that come from? It really comes from, do I have a sense of myself so that I can have a sense of number, a sense of other?
yeah,
And so as we kind of pause to say, readiness matters,
yeah,
and just including in the lesson plan a full sense of preparation first to get that sorted, and then we move into content.
yeah,
That makes a big difference, and it's not a really big adjustment for educators because they're used to lesson planning and they're used to daily planning.
right.
We just need to add these elements to it. And so a lot of coaching around that. And then I think most teachers from there start to feel a little bit like, but I don't know enough about the body. I don't know if I want to
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that always feels a little bit like, let's just take a breath together and demystify that. And
yeah,
then my hope is always that somebody gets curious enough to want to know more, because there is a lot to know
yes,
about how our bodies support our minds,
yeah,
but at the end of the day it really can be demystified and simplified into let's just What does it mean to sit? What does it mean to ground in your body?
Right,
What
right.
does it mean to feel yourself in a space of recepting,
Yeah,
receiving,
right.
and exchanging information?
Yes,
All of that is like energy flow,
yes,
right? And so it has to start from here's my ground, and I send and I receive. What
yes,
does that mean? How can I feel that? And how can we set ourselves up to allow kids to know how to do that in their bodies
right.
to allow their minds to do the work that they can do?
Yes. How do you prepare a child for, let's say, pre-K for math lessons? Or how do you prepare a child for a read aloud where the child has to sit down and keep a fair, like a pretzel, that they literally say pretzel position. And the children that I work with, they can't stay in that position. And they
Mhm.
can't stay in that position for very long. That's the other
Mhm.
thing. And then they have to get up. Is there a resource that we can all Google and get, or?
I wish that there were better, simple resources, honestly. I
Yeah.
do know that there is a growing body of work, and there are different curriculum that
Mhm.
I don't know that I'll pull all of them to the top of my mind now, but I
Yeah.
think I could share them with you, and you could share them
Yes.
as a resource to accompany our discussion today.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm happy to do that. But um, what I would point people first to some of the work that Lori Desautels
Oh,
is
yes.
doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And, her neuroscience-based curriculum for teachers and sort of helping teachers to understand the mind-body connection and
Yeah.
how influential our body and our basic nervous system, the kind of downstairs parts of our nervous system
Yes.
that support our upstairs really smart minds,
Yes. Yeah.
how all that works together. And she has a really comprehensive approach
Yes.
that I think makes it quite accessible for teachers. So that's a great resource.
Yes. Yes. She's
But
like 4 or 5 books out. Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
just so much accessible information. And, I'm an occupational therapist. So my approach to it is more from a little bit of that deeper lens into what does sensation really mean to the nervous system? How does our motor system work? What
Exactly.
is our affective system? And how
Right.
does it kind of
Exactly.
support our
Yes.
learning?
Yes. That's what I'm
Yeah.
interested in, your perspective on it. Yes.
Yeah. So I think again, it comes back to that noticing. Like if you notice that a child settles into circle time, but they can only be there for 2 or 3 minutes, their little nervous system is telling them, I can't hold this sitting and attentional position for a long time.
Yeah.
So I need to get up and move.
Yeah.
So if instead of now I have to get up and move and leave, and now I'm not on the thing that you were wanting me to think about, if in the cycle of the circle time if the baseline for the hardest child in the classroom is 2 minutes,
Yeah.
then maybe every 2 minutes we take a little, okay, let's land that in our bodies, let's wiggle it into our bodies,
Right.
let's
Right.
settle that in.
Yes. Yes.
And we lots of times I think that if we notice that child who keeps leaving and we organize a little bit of the flow of
Yeah.
information exchange to
Yes.
match them, it
Yeah.
will help all the other kids and
Yes.
it'll help everybody to feel engaged. So
Right.
if we think about our attention,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, attention is such a complex thing, but
Yes.
it begins with I orient my midline, my nose, my eyes, my ears to the source of information.
Right.
And
Right.
that means I have to be able to hold myself in order for my eyes and ears to take that information in. If
Yes.
I notice a child isn't doing that well, okay, so what does that mean? It means that I need to help them find their body in space,
Yeah.
find their midline.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to do a little bit of work around that. Every time I'm going to use my eyes, the first thing I do is feel my body and feel the sides of my body,
Mhm.
feel how movement comes in.
Mhm.
And then I sort of turn that wiring on.
Yeah.
And then, then it becomes differently available to that child who can't figure out how to even find
Yeah,
themselves in space or time.
absolutely. They don't know where their body, some of the children I work with, they don't know where their body is in space. They
Right.
don't know how their body connects
That's right.
to themselves. When I say raise your hand, it's like they don't know what where up is, and then they don't even know necessarily how to plan the muscles to go up and raise their hand. So it's not only
Mhm.
that, but also like the other day I was practicing emotions with this one of the with a little girl, and they have these like lollipops with different emotions that you can bring up. And I said, let's imitate them. And I noticed she doesn't know how to move her face.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm just wondering from an OT perspective, what do you recommend? Do you recommend self-massage? Do you recommend tapping? Do you recommend, I don't know, maybe rinsing their face with water to kind of stimulate some cold, warm temperatures? What do you
Mhm.
recommend?
Yeah, so, one of the things that I'm going to start with is that for me as an occupational therapist, the strategy, whether it's touching or exploring, is going to be based a little bit on the underlying reason, the why.
Yes,
So I'm going to get a little curious about the why because I might have one child who doesn't activate their facial muscles because they don't really feel them.
yes,
They don't have the sensor, we call that sensory perception or
yes,
sensory detail discrimination processing.
right.
And sometimes kids don't, they literally don't know if I'm supposed to raise my hand, where is up or where is down.
Yeah,
How do I lift my face? How do I
yeah,
lift my smile? They don't feel that. And
yeah,
so for that kind of child, it's really different than if the reason is because I'm reticent and I'm a bit shut down and protective,
sure.
and I'm more in a withdrawn or even dissociated space. And that's a different problem. And
Yeah,
so the first thing is that I do want to be interested to begin to say, do I notice this as they don't know where their face is up and they also don't know where their body is up and they also don't know their left from their right and their front from their back. That
yes,
tells me more it's a discrimination and perceptual problem. And then lots of perceptual play is known to help that. So yeah, we're going to do a lot of, let's put some marshmallow cream on the cheeks and see if we can get our tongues to touch it. And we're going
right,
to
right.
do some exploration.
Yes,
We're going to do a lot of, putting a red band on our right arm and a green on our left and
yes,
trying to find and touch and feel
yes, yes,
things to activate that awareness.
yes,
And that really is helpful for children that have those kind of more perceptual based issues. Yeah.
yes. How important is vision and hearing in education? I have a child who has been flagged just through screening in school to to have her eyes and ears checked out by a doctor. In what way does it affect the child's ability to learn, would you say?
Yeah, oh, it's so critically important. I mean, of course, if a child really is missing a core sensation, like I have a hearing impairment or I have a visual impairment, that really needs to be identified. And because there are whole approaches that are geared in that direction. And if you think about most classrooms,
Yeah,
most of the learning is done through those two channels.
exactly,
Even in a multisensory environment, they're
exactly.
heavily weighted toward auditory and visual information.
Yes.
Mhm.
When the child isn't able to actually participate in class, there is a discomfort, a visible discomfort. And that the visible discomfort shows up when they start doing certain things like licking their hands.
Mhm.
You know, what is
Mhm.
what is it about licking your hands? Tell us.
Yeah, licking your hands, hand flapping,
Yes,
chewing a lot of
yes,
things,
yes. Doing the
chewing your
antenna.
shirt until
Yeah,
it's,
yeah, yeah,
drenched or even
yes,
even eaten,
yes, yes,
all of these things. So sometimes children have an internal sense of the sense that they're overwhelmed, that what they're processing, what they're trying to do requires a lot more support. And one of the supports that we all look for is body-based support. We need
yes,
information from our body to tell us that we're safe, that we're secure, that we're grounded. And when we get overwhelmed, that we can manage that overwhelm. So most of the time, I don't know what you do, but I notice in my own life that when I start to get kind of overwhelmed, the first thing I do is I adjust my posture. Now,
mhm,
that's a little subtle postural adjustment.
mhm,
And then I might really adjust my breathing pattern.
mhm.
Okay. I might reach for something to drink.
Yeah,
I might start to notice that I'm kind of holding on to my fingertip and sort of rubbing my
yes,
fingernail or
yes,
doodling a little. So
yes,
we all do these little subtle things to regulate our nervous systems.
yeah,
Our bodies have these natural portals
yes,
from our body, from touch, movement, oral sensation, breath, visual inputs, all of these ways that just naturally regulate our nervous systems. For children who are struggling, you're going to see bigger actions. So, not just little finger rubbing, but they're going to be picking their fingernail or chewing it or chewing
right,
their shirt,
right, right, right.
So, it's really a reflection of how hard they're working, of
Yeah,
how much their nervous system needs extra support. And when we see that not as a problem, but as information
yes,
that's telling us what they need, and
yes.
we start to meet that need, body need met, mind open for learning, right?
Yes. In one of your podcasts, you were talking about you can tell by the child's eye movement
Mhm.
what kind of nervous state they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that's fascinating. Because the eyes, of course, are important. And again, I have this one child who turns her head to look out of her right eye only. And
Mhm.
then she's also very, very concerned about any kind of movement that happens in class. So if she's
Mhm.
sitting in circle time, she will turn around and look at the door anytime somebody comes in.
Mhm.
And no amount of redirection actually works because she has
Mhm.
to do it. It's like a must in her.
Mhm.
What can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting to me. Again, I'm going to kind of go a little bit deeper in my description in that in the sensory world, we always have these two candidate issues. One is that perceptual thing I described.
Yeah,
And so part of what she's doing with this turning her eyes is going to be related to that. The other is more related to that regulation part. We call that sensory modulation and regulation. So
right.
there's two kinds of sensation, a
Yeah,
higher level perceptual and a
yeah,
lower level that supports the body-mind connection and the regulation system.
right,
So sometimes this little one, because maybe her visual system perceptually doesn't work so well, she has to be extra vigilant to make sure she knows exactly what visual information may be coming into her world because she can't take it in easily. So she has to know. So it makes her really vigilant. So she has to know when the thing is happening.
right.
That's that lower part, that modulation system. But sometimes that system is not well supported by the upper level system, this perceptual system. And my cue that that's tricky for her is because she has to isolate and turn her gaze just and bring it in to a smaller channel.
Yeah,
Now, this sort of brings up a lot of different complexities for me, Mina.
yeah,
But what I want to say is that our eyes work as a part of our head and neck complex. Okay. And our eyes are partially wired by this very secret sensory system that sits deep inside of our inner ears. It's called the vestibular system. And the vestibular system works with our eyes to help us to zero in on and then do this kind of looking out and bringing our eyes in. And
Mhm.
it helps us to isolate our eyes. So there are lots of different other cranial nerves and functions of our eyes that probably should be evaluated for this little girl. But it's not uncommon for kids who are present with neurodiversity of one kind or another to show you that their visual system needs extra support, and that visual system is supported by the vestibular system.
Mhm.
And the vestibular system guides our eye movements.
Mhm.
Okay. So, what's so interesting about this is that the vestibular system is the earliest sensory system to come online in utero. It's available to us in the first few months of life. And then for
Wow.
the whole rest of our life, it is the truth. It's like our true north in our world that we orient to. Internally, the vestibular system is our north. Okay. It tells us where our center is.
Mhm.
It organizes everything that we do from here out.
Mhm.
And so it's also connected to our eyes directly. So as we begin to scan and we look over there, what brings us back to here is the relationship of the vestibular system. So we always find our midline.
Mhm.
And when we're working with children, it's really helpful to organize them so that we know where is our midline. I start here, I get my materials over here, and I come back here. I
Mhm.
look here and I come back here. I
Mhm.
look to you, I come back to me,
Mhm.
you and me. It's about this exchange, and it's always back to the middle. So when we have a child who organizes off their middle, whoa, there's a lot to wonder about there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
And of course, I have seen people who have partial vision too.
Uh-huh, for
So
sure.
they only see from, I don't know, a small portion of their eyes. And so
That's
they
right.
have to, they literally read things very close because they can only see out of that. And I'm thinking, how is this child, how much does this child see of what's going on in the classroom?
Right.
And
That's exactly right. That's
and
right.
and how taxing it must be for her to pay attention to something that is really hard for her to see. And of course, what's happening now, and I might be completely off base, she's not learning her letters.
No.
She can't trace them.
Mm.
And because of the hearing, we don't know what it is, but it was the screening said it needs to be checked out. She he's not learning sounds of the letters. So and we practice it every single day. The teacher
Mhm.
does, she's got two SEATs, one of them, I'm one of them. The other one is with her most of the time, and she does nothing but practice. And I'm thinking, how, if a child can't do something like letters, she's fascinated by letters, but she can't remember anything either.
Yeah.
And so, how useful is it to keep doing this as opposed to other fun things, like counting by jumping up and down while holding her hand or something like that, or making letters in the sand, or like uncovering I'm just wondering, other kinds of activities that don't focus on something that you can't do.
Yeah,
Like self
absolutely.
self-worth.
Totally, totally. And you know what you're bringing up is really that she does really, we do need a lot more information. Does she have a visual field cut? That's something that's beyond the vestibular system and can be really indicative of something else going on for her, whether there was, maybe when she was a little baby or in utero, there was some kind of something that happened. Like a lot of times, kids are born with just a mild stroke or something like that, and then we see them in their early childhood, and we see this very significant thing that is more of a, there really is something that's different, or maybe it's indicative of a genetic condition. So those kinds of things need to be checked out, and we need to know if she can really hear and perceive, hear before you can perceive. If you don't have baseline vision and you
Yeah.
don't have baseline hearing,
Right.
then the perceptual systems that we're talking about that help support learning are going to be impacted by that. So then, if we can clear up whether or not this is an actual visual difficulty or hearing difficulty,
Yeah.
then we move into the space of understanding her perceptual understanding.
Right.
And a lot of reading and sound symbol relationship is based in does my ear not just hear, but can it take in the phoneme, the actual
Yes.
detail and
Yes.
the difference between, a pa and a ba
Yeah.
is a sound difference. It's an oral motor difference because they feel different when I say pa versus ba.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference in the air transfer.
Hmm.
So in the perceptual teaching world, the
Yeah.
better we get at being really precise
Hmm.
around how we're helping her to take in the detail,
Yes.
then those are the really best interventions for that. And in addition to that, is she showing readiness for letter awareness? Is she showing readiness for that? If not, then we need to sort of back into a more simple level of perceptual play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there was, we know that there was trauma in utero. Um, but what is also interesting is that, so I'm going to bring up the issue of her talking. She is, so she can speak, but when she gets tired, she repeats everything you tell her.
Mhm.
Everything you tell her over the same thing. So you think, oh, she understands because she's repeating it. She can say it, so she can
Yeah.
hear it and she can say it, but it doesn't register. There's something going on with her memory.
Mm.
And so I'm wondering about, is there a connection between the vestibular system and speech?
There can be layers of connection there. But what I think we want to understand about her is if she's in a state of full readiness and availability and her communication is more connected and you can see that it's more meaningful. And then something happens where she fatigues or maybe she gets
Right,
a little overwhelmed. And now her the state of the nervous system is kind of in the background
right,
behind the learning and the memory.
right.
So if there's something in her state that now makes her less available, you're going
Yeah,
to see more automatic responses. You'll see more perseveration, more
there you go.
repetition.
There you
And
go.
that's kind of a sign to us that this this higher level
Yeah,
brain that is sitting on top of this downstairs brain. Or
yeah,
sometimes I do it like what's behind and what's in
yes,
front.
yes,
Behind is the state. And if she's not in a state of regulation that's really available for taking in information,
yeah.
she won't take in information.
What's the use?
What's the use? So, in that, the vestibular system does help us with our state.
Mhm.
Okay. The autonomic nervous system, and I know you're well versed in the
Yeah,
autonomic nervous system,
yes,
is also, connected to our state.
yes,
And so we want to really start to understand that about her. Is it coming from, her basic regulatory system, and what does that mean for her?
Right. You have this incredible concept called engaged belonging. And I'm just using her as an example of like making it a little bit more concrete for people to understand. It could be her, or it could be a child with autism. How do we create engaged belonging for these individuals?
When I think about engaged belonging, it really has us move beyond just the idea of inclusion,
Yeah,
because so often inclusion becomes very passive, and
yeah,
it can almost become, as one of my colleagues, Karen Riley, says, that it's geography instead of the actual enacting of what is this, right? So just because a child is in an environment geographically doesn't really mean inclusion. Engaged belonging means that we're really meeting them for who they are
yeah,
and that their sense of belonging is fully supported, so that their agency, their sense of self, and their capacities are involved in the engagement, in their participation, and in the meaningfulness of why they're there.
yeah.
So engaged belonging is a very deep and beautiful concept that I think guides us in a deeper way than just the idea of inclusion.
Okay.
Um, and especially for children who are neurodiverse, we have to work really hard to see them for the fullness of who they are,
Yes.
not for a label,
Yeah.
no matter what that means, right?
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes, absolutely. And I think maybe this is a good place for us to stop for today, but with the promise that you'll come back because you are a gold mine.
Oh, thank you so much.
You
Well, it's
are a
just a
gold
pleasure.
mine with a huge heart on top of that. And we need to see how we integrate the gold mine and the heart together to support our children. So thank you so
Oh, thank
much.
you. You're so welcome.